if it comes to the point where I see Matt Olson there, and I know that Bryce Harper and Pete Alonso are still waiting in the wings, like maybe a round or two later, I think I'm passing on Matt Olson.
Carry home run after home run after home run. I was like, holy crap! Like, it's the old Altuve, you know.
I'm going after guys like Austin Riley that's gonna hit close to 40 home runs with a decent batting average.
It has nothing to do with the luxury tax or any of that stuff, dude. It's just the owners want to bring a champion to a team. They're gonna do whatever it takes.
All right, welcome everyone to Real Talk Fantasy Baseball. First of all, I want to say that we are super close to 600 subscribers, so we appreciate you guys, everyone that subscribes and likes and watches our videos. Hopefully we can get that 600 soon. Our goal is 1,000 by the end of the season. That's a pretty high goal, man, but honestly, I think we can do it. I think if we just keep on putting good content out there consistently every single week, I think the people will realize that we kind of know what we're talking about when it comes to fantasy baseball. And the guys on the Monday show, like they have a lot of good information when it comes to news and rumors and everything that kind of goes along with that. They have some cool segments about MLB history and some trivia once in a while. We'll probably do some trivia throughout the regular season, but for right now, because it's kind of crunch time right now when it comes to drafts, like it's a little hard to kind of fit stuff like that in because there's so many players that we need to talk about every single week. It's like there's top 12, or maybe sometimes we go 13, 14, something like that. There's so many guys to talk about, and it's really hard to limit the amount of time that we talk on each player. Today is actually a little bit easier, I think, for us because relief pitcher is like, I don't know. It's one of those categories that, as far as I'm concerned, I've always kind of punted, when it comes to RP closers, especially in a points league, they're just not as valuable. Maybe if I played in Roto, I'd probably try to go for the closers, more often, but it's really hard in the kind of like the state of the game that we're in right now, because there's a lot of teams in previous years and in just the past few years that don't really have that like solidified closer. A lot of times it's like closer by committee, or you got what they call the fireman, where he doesn't necessarily always pitch the ninth. He's coming in the eighth inning, or even the seventh inning, depending on wherever the strongest bats in the lineup are. That's where the manager would kind of like slot them in. The Dodgers do that. The Rays have done that. The Twins have done that. It's been a little while since every single team had that like definitive closer, but it kind of seems like teams are kind of like going back into that like closer mentality, because dude, there were more saves last year by like individual players on each team than we've seen in a really long time. How long has it been since we actually saw like a 40 save season? I think last season,
it's been a while.
2023, I think 2023 was the first time in a few years, and not only that, but there was at least, I think there was 11 or 12 closers that had at least 31 saves. I believe it was 12, but it might be a little bit less than that. I forget the exact number, but
It's
so what's your overall kind of thought about like relief pitcher? Whereas we're playing in both categories leagues and in points leagues this season. So do you have a different strategy for categories and versus points?
I've always I'm kind of like on your I agree pretty much 100% with what you said. And I kind of go with the direction that you go with as far as punting when it comes to relief pitching. You always have that SPRP guys, the guys that either they can start or they use them as relief. And that's usually where I go. That's like a safe bet for me because you can always have a guy that has dual eligibility go and give you more points than an actual just a straight up relief pitcher. Like you said, back in the day there wasn't really that many are, relief pitchers that pop out. If your name is not like Kenley Jansen back in the day, or Craig Kimbrell back in the day, those were the guys that you would kind of target in drafts. They're all a little bit older now. You got these young guys coming in. They're still, I would say from the guys that we're going to talk about, I would say maybe five or six of the guys that are up there, I would probably take a chance on. But even if you miss out on that, you still got a lot of great guys that can play that shutdown role at the end of the game. I will say this: a lot of teams, they're going with this closer by committee deal, which I kind of like because it'll keep your arms fresh as far as the actual in-game stuff goes on with the teams. As far as during the season, making playoff runs, keeping their guys healthy. But yeah, my strategy has always been like to target like the guys that have dual eligibility as far as like starting pitching, relief pitching. But like I said, these top guys like top 5, 6. If you can get your hands on one of them, you have a legitimate shot of having a great close that'll give you consistent points throughout the season. So that's my take.
Yeah, when it comes to categories leagues, um, I'm it really depends on what part of the draft I'm in. Like if I'll never draft a closer in the earlier rounds. I would always at least wait until like the 7th or 8th round, because there's so many other guys that are just so more valuable. It's like you have these relief pitchers that
Yeah.
pitch maybe 3 innings a week, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less, depending on their team context, whether they're winning or losing, or if they're winning by a lot, or if they're winning by a little, on a per game basis. So I have always kind of felt that relief pitchers didn't really have the value that like another starting pitcher has that's going in the same round as them. Like let's say on my list of top RPs this season, Josh Hader is at the top.
Yeah.
And it was Devin Williams, but now that Josh Hader is on a much better team, he's with the Astros now, that just kind of like pushed him over the top because the
Yeah.
Astros are going to get a lot of wins. Now, the flip side to that is because the Astros score a lot of runs, if they're up by 5 runs in the 9th inning, we're not going to see Josh Hader close out the game because it's not a
Mm.
safe situation. So for those
Yeah.
who don't know, a safe situation is when the winning team is winning by 3 runs or less in the top of the 9th inning. So, if you're winning by 4 runs, 5 runs, 6 runs, a lot of times they'll use the setup guy,
Yeah.
like the backup, which in this season, it seems like it's going to be Ryan Presley for the Astros. So he's going to get a lot more holds and potentially a couple saves as well, because if they want Josh Hader to pitch the 8th inning because they're facing the Braves and you have Acuna, Olsen, and Riley coming up, next in the order, and it's the 7th inning, then you want your best reliever to go out there and shut those guys down. And then the next inning, you have like the 4, 5, and 6 guy, or the 5, 6, 7
Hmm.
guy. It just keeps on going farther down the lineup, and the lineup gets less scary, down towards the bottom. So the state of pitching right now, for at least for relief pitchers, it's kind of up in the air, because 2023 we saw a lot more saves from each individual player, like I said earlier. So is that going to be the same in 2024? I don't know. It's highly possible,
Yeah.
or maybe it could be it could change. So I don't know. We'll see. But for now, I think I'm gonna go with. I think that more teams are going to go with that like traditional kind of closer type, just because
Yeah.
it happened last year. Why would it change now?
Yeah.
So I'm
I,
doing
I
my rankings. Yeah, go
oh, I'm
ahead.
sorry, real quick. I think a lot of the teams that are potential playoff contending teams pretty much have a setup, like a closer guy set. I would say. And a lot of these other teams that are kind of like trying to break through to get into the playoffs, they're trying to figure out their bullpen situation. So I think that's why they throw out these little, closer by committee deals to see. Maybe it's kind of like a competition to see who can be the more consistent pitcher. I don't know. Sometimes I see it like that.
I think there's a lot of different things because there's righty lefty matchups. There's
Hmm.
um, guys that are very like ground ball heavy that throw a lot of sinkers and changeups, or there's guys that are very fly ball heavy. So, in certain ballparks, like let's say if there's like okay, like just take Josh Hader for example, because that's who we mentioned, just a couple minutes ago. So if he's pitching in Houston, there might be um a different managerial decision than if he's pitching in Texas, or if he's I mean it's still Texas, but in the Rangers stadium, or if he's pitching in a more hitter friendly ballpark. That Josh Hader's the type of guy that he does allow a lot of fly balls, but he
Yeah.
also gets a lot of strikeouts. So, a lot of fly balls, possibly in Houston, it's not going to matter as much as it would in Milwaukee, where he used to pitch, or in Citizens Bank in Philadelphia, or Coors Field. So there's a lot of different managerial decisions that come down to stuff like that. Like, do I want the my reliever that has a very heavy sinker, in a ballpark that's very hitter friendly, versus like my shutdown reliever that sometimes gives up a few too many home runs, and the
Yeah.
fly balls don't help him much. So it's a little bit rough, but because relief pitchers are just not as valuable as basically any other position in fantasy baseball, I feel like you don't really need to put so much emphasis on relief pitcher. Personally, whether it's categories leagues or points leagues, I don't think I'm even drafting relief pitchers until, you know, the very late rounds. And
Yeah.
once we're in like the 20, 21st, 22nd round, that's usually when I'm going to go after my relief pitchers, because not only are you going to pay a premium for these guys in the earlier rounds, but there's a lot of relief pitchers that kind of just come out of nowhere that end up
Hmm.
getting the closer role for teams throughout the season. So as long as you're active on the waiver wire, I feel like you can kind of just find saves, on a
Yeah.
weekly basis. So
Yeah.
that's why I don't really put too much emphasis on relief pitcher. But it seems like there's actually a lot of closers this season, like enough for everyone to have at least one. And
Hmm.
in most leagues you have two RP spots, and then you have uh however many SP spots your league has, and then you have your bench, and then sometimes you'll even have just the P spot where you can pick either relief pitcher or starting pitcher. But a lot of times for myself, like in a points league, I'm going after the starting pitcher and or the guys that have starting pitcher and relief pitcher eligibility, kind of like what you said
Yeah.
earlier, and I'm kind of like punting on the saves. But this season it might be a little bit different. I don't know. I'm not. I don't really know how I'm going to do it until I'm actually in a draft, which our first draft
Yeah.
is going to be this weekend. I've done lots of mock drafts, and I'm trying like different things kind of here and there. I've drafted Devin Williams in a mock draft. I've gotten Emmanuel Clase and a couple other guys, and it always just seems like I'm missing out on
Yeah.
a higher value player in that same round where I draft those guys. So
Right.
I think I'm just waiting on a relief pitcher till the end. But all right,
Yeah.
so I'm doing my relief pitcher rankings kind of like we do every single week, and I'm doing my notes and everything. And I went through like the top like 6 or 7 guys, and it just seemed it felt like I was just writing the same thing for every single guy because
Yeah.
all these guys are elite. Like the top 10, 11, 12 guys, they're all elite. Emmanuel Clase kind of had a down season. His strikeouts were down, but he also was the saves leader. in 2023. So it's like
Yep.
it was kind of like a little bit of a balance right there. But I actually came up with, where did I put it? Here it is. All right. So these are the power rankings that MLB has, and you see on the left side, those are the top 15 teams, the teams that are going to finish with the 15 best records. And then on the right side, you have the teams that are going to finish with the bottom half of the record. So, for those who can't see that can only listen, so you have the Braves, Dodgers, Astros, Yankees, Orioles, Phillies, Rangers, Diamondbacks, Blue Jays, Rays, Mariners, Twins, Cardinals, Padres, and Cubs as the top 15 teams. And out of all 15, there's only 5 teams that actually have that like legit closer that have like basically said like this is our guy, that are almost guaranteed to get at least 30 saves. And then on the right side, the bottom 15 teams, you have the Red Sox, the Brewers, Giants, Reds, Mets, Marlins, Guardians, Tigers, Pirates, Angels, Royals, Nationals, White Sox, Rockies, and A's. And on this side, it's very similar. You only have 6 guys that are legit closers for, each of their respective teams. And, honestly, team context is very important, when it comes to wins and losses, win-loss record. A team that wins more is probably going to have more save opportunities. But, a guy just looking at 2023 stats, the number 2 relief pitcher in all of baseball, in terms of saves, he had finished the season with 39 saves, was David Bednar from the Pittsburgh Pirates. And the Pittsburgh Pirates did not win that many games last season, but because they only win usually by 1, 2, or 3 runs, that means a lot of save opportunities for a guy like David Bednar,
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, for the Braves, Raisel Iglesias had 33 saves. It's 6 saves less than David Bednar. And, he plays on Raisel Iglesias plays on a much better team, But the problem is the Braves, the Astros, the Dodgers, all the top teams that have really good lineups are going to score a lot more runs than their opponents. So they're not going to have those type of save situations. So, team context is important, but there's a couple other things that I personally think are just as important. And the top one for me is strikeout percentage. If I can find a reliever that, if he, let's say the reliever that I pick up, whether he's a closer or a setup man or just like a shutdown guy for the 7th or, whatever it is for the team, if his strikeouts are high, if he's pitching at least 4 innings a week and gets 2 strikeouts per inning, that's 8 strikeouts that are going to go for my total for the week, and sometimes they're going to strike out the side. So that goes a little bit higher. And sometimes it's going to be a little bit less. So it's kind of give and take. But even in a categories league, I still like these guys with very high K rate because it's just going to add to your total for the week, And even in a points league, like a guy that comes in the 7th inning, if he has high strikeouts and the game is tied, and then his team after the inning's over, when his team comes up to bat and they score, then he's eligible for the win, and that's 3 points or 5 points, however your league does it. When it comes to relief pitcher, I feel like these 11 guys that I have on the red names that I have: Raisel Iglesias for the Braves, Josh Hader for the Astros, Paul Sewald for the Diamondbacks, Jordan Romano for the Blue Jays, Johan Duran for the Twins, Devin Williams for the Brewers, Camilo Doval for the Giants, Alexis Diaz for the Reds, Edwin Diaz for the Mets, Emmanuel Clase for the Guardians, and David Bednar for the Pirates. They all have very similar value because they're all going to get a lot of saves. Emmanuel Clase is kind of like the one that kind of sticks out for me the most. In ADP, he's up there. He's the 4th reliever that comes off the board, I believe. Because you have Josh Hader, Devin Williams, Edwin Diaz, and then you have Emmanuel Clase, but his strikeouts are so low. You know,
Yeah,
he
they
only
are.
has like a 7 point something K per 9, so not even a strikeout per inning, you know,
Yeah.
but the saves leader last season. So, you know, it's kind of give and take with that guy. So, do you trust
Yeah.
him to get over 40 saves again? Because the Guardians do. You know, the Guardians know that he is their guy to shut down in the ninth. And
Yeah.
I think he has a good chance to probably be the saves leader again in 2024.
That's crazy, right? Because the Guardians are not that I see a playoff contending team or one of those big offensive juggernaut type of teams. So for him to have that many saves, I saw that I was like, wow, how the hell did he get that many saves on a Guardians team? So you could only imagine if the Guardians can somewhat put it together. He could easily have the same amount of saves this season. Definitely.
Yeah, I'm looking at the records for last season, and the Guardians only won 76 games. They were actually under 500 at 469
Hmm.
win percentage. 76 wins and 86 losses. That's
Yep.
that's pretty terrible to have a losing season like that. But then your closer goes out and he leads the leagues in saves. You know, so it's
Yep.
pretty crazy, man. The state of relief pitching, you know, this season. But you know, it is what it is. That's why he's on this list because of how many saves he gets, regardless of his strikeouts, you know, or whatever else it could be. But these 11 guys are the ones that I can say like I trust the most, you know. And then I have my backups right here, who a lot of guys on this list also had at least 30 saves. You have Carlos Estevez of the Angels, Kyle Finnegan of the Nationals, Pete Fairbanks from the Rays, Clay Holmes of the Yankees, Andres Munoz from the Mariners, Evan Phillips from the Dodgers, Craig Kimbrell. He wasn't on the Orioles last year, but he is this year. And I feel like Craig Kimbrell is actually going to get his saves totals up this year because the Orioles won over 100 games last year and the Phillies did not. And also, the Phillies didn't really trust him to be the closer all season long, you know. So he didn't get as many opportunities as I think he will on the Orioles, with Felix Bautista kind of being out of the picture for 2024. Ryan Halsey from the Cardinals, Tanner Scott from the Marlins, and Kenley Jansen from the Red Sox. Now, anything could happen in the season. You could have trades and or signings, or you know, whatever it may be, or you can even have like some teams take their starting pitchers and put them in the relief role, and then they thrive in the bullpen. You know, we saw that from Reynaldo Lopez, you know, last season, and I believe the season before he was a starting pitcher, and I believe he's actually going to be in the rotation again for 2024, but last season he was only a relief pitcher. So that's actually one of the SP/RPs that we could have listed on this list, but he's not on my top. So, like you said earlier, Javi, you said that you like drafting those guys that have both eligibility, SP and RP,
Hmm.
especially in a points league. And Cole
Yeah.
Reagan's last season, when he was just relief pitcher for the Royals, he was, or what's the Royals? No, I believe he's on the Royals now. Um, I don't remember what team he got traded from. I'm actually going
I
to look
want to
that
say
up.
the Texans. I want to say the Texas
Yeah,
Rangers.
that's actually, yeah, that
Right?
sounds right because
Yeah.
that's where Aroldis Chapman went to, because I
Yeah.
believe it was
Hmm.
part of the trade, right? So when he was with Texas, you know, Cole Reagans as a reliever was not very good. And then he goes over
Hmm.
to the Royals, they make him a starter, and all of a sudden he's, you know, top 25 starting pitcher in the league, and he's getting drafted that way also.
Yeah. Um,
So Cole Reagans, Michael King, who was on the Yankees, who was also a reliever, who they used in the closer role a little bit, you know, before he ended up getting traded. So he's on the Padres now, and I believe that the word is that the Padres are going to use Michael King as a starting pitcher, especially because they lost Blake Snell, so they needed to fill that role with someone. And I know you like Ryan Pepiot, man. You know, every Dodger fan was very excited about Ryan Pepiot, and you know, unfortunately, the Dodgers ended up losing him. He ends up getting traded to the Rays. The Dodgers got Tyler Glasnow in return, which was, it's high risk, high reward. But Ryan Pepiot seems like he has a pretty good future, and 2024 could be a breakout because the Dodgers had some depth in their starting pitching, and he was a young guy that kind of had his shot, but not really. But now with the Rays, I feel like he's going to get that ultimate opportunity to, possibly make 28, 30 starts, something like that for the season. And the Rays, they are so good at developing their pitching. That a young guy like this, I feel like they did it with Tyler Glasnow. When they got him traded over from the Pirates, they've done it multiple times with a lot of different pitchers. They helped Blake Snell get his first Cy Young.
Yep. That's what I was gonna say. Pepiot, when he pitched well, he was good, man. He was solid. We always talk about how the Dodgers groom their pitchers and coming out of the minors and stuff, and he had a pretty much he was up and down for the most part, but he's going from one good pitching developing team to another, who the Rays are kind of, I want to say they're kind of hurting on pitching because a lot of guys got injured last year. What was that one guy that got injured? Damn,
From
I
what
think
team?
you had him from the Rays. He was gone for the season early. Yes. Well, it was him, and there was another guy, McClanahan, and somebody.
Drew Rasmussen.
That's the guy I was thinking about. So you lose these two guys who are very detrimental to the team. That they're really young, they're really good pitchers, and now you're looking for somebody to help you out. And with them getting Pepiot, I think it's good for them because, like you said, the Rays are really good at developing their pitching. So this guy's young. I'm pretty sure he's hungry. He wants to prove what he's got, and I think the Rays are a great fit for him, man.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. All right, so we already went over team context when it comes to RP, strikeout percentage when it comes to RP. Real quick, I want to talk about Rival Fantasy, so I'm going to change this graphic real quick. So Rival Fantasy, go to rivalfantasy.com or download the Rival Fantasy app. They have, they're your one-stop shop for all of your fantasy sports needs. The only thing that they don't have is season-long fantasy baseball, but they are working on it, and we're hoping that next season they will have that. But for right now, basketball season's going. The drafts for basketball are all over, but they do have daily challenges where, if you can see this in the middle, you can pick your side. So they have two different players to choose from, and you pick which player is going to have more points, or there's a little question at the top of each challenge, and it basically asks you, like, who do you think is going to have more fantasy points by the end of the day, or who do you think is going to make more shots, or whatever the question is, and then you answer. It's like $3 or something like that to enter this challenge, and you have an opportunity to triple, quadruple, your money depending on how many people play. You can even create your own challenges, and you can challenge your friends. So once you sign up, make sure you use the code Real Talk Baseball when you're creating your account, and you will have your opportunity to deposit however much money you want onto your account, and they will match whatever your first deposit is by up to $200. So head over to rivalfantasy.com, check out the Rival Fantasy app, and baseball season's coming, so they're going to start doing their baseball challenges. Right now, it's all about best ball. So it is season-long drafts. But best ball, one of the things that's so fun about fantasy baseball is always the draft. Football, baseball, basketball. The draft is always like the part that you're like most excited about, and then the second comes to playoffs, obviously. But, so if you like to draft and you think you're good at drafting, best ball is definitely the way to go. There's no in-season moves. You draft your team before the season starts. By the end of the season, if you had the best team out of the other 11 teams that you drafted with, or sometimes it's even less than that, the other 5 teams that you drafted with, the other 7 teams, whatever it is, you have an opportunity to win some money. If you feel like you're good at fantasy baseball, this is definitely the website for you. I'm very excited about it. I've done a few best ball challenges already. I'm pretty happy with my teams, and I can't wait for those daily challenges, man. I think those are going to be really fun.
Heck yeah, we need some money. Let's make some
Yeah,
money.
making some money is always a good thing, man.
Oh yeah.
All right, going back to the RP rankings. So one more look, but before we kind of like give our final thoughts on relief pitchers. So again, the names in red are the ones that we feel very comfortable that are going to keep their job, throughout the season, and don't really have much competition. The guys that are in blue are the ones that could possibly lose their closer role, but they are basically the closer for their respective teams right now. Either they could lose the job, or the manager just kind of seems to like that, like closer by committee style. And then we also have the SPRP eligible pitchers down in the right. So the third thing that I'm always looking for when I'm thinking about relief pitchers is competition, because guys like Craig Kimbrell, if he struggles, Yennier Cano could be the guy, and we've seen Craig Kimbrell struggle before. He's not that shutdown closer like he was with the Braves when he first came up. He hasn't been that guy for a while. And was the Cubs? Who was the other team that he played for where he was just like amazing? I think it was
You talking about Kimbrel?
Kimbrell, yeah.
It wasn't the Cardinals, was it?
No, that doesn't sound right.
Red Sox?
Oh, that's right. He was with the Red Sox. Yeah, he was really good back then. But he's kind of fallen on hard times since then. He's a little bit older now, and arms get tired.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, his setup is always funny to me, bro. Every time I see him set up to pitch.
Yeah, that's kind of like the thing that's most memorable about Craig Kimbrell.
Yeah.
Is, his setup when he leans over with his arm basically behind his neck, and
it's so funny, dude.
A very weird style. And I remember when he came up with the Braves, and there were so many people that used to make fun of him. Like, I would even see fans in the stands, like behind home plate, like how you can see them, during the at bat, and they would be like mocking him, the same thing. Little did they know when he first came up that he was eventually going to be like, a top 5 closer for the next few years.
Yep. That's crazy.
Another name also is Kenley Jansen. He is the closer for the Red Sox, but he's also been struggling in the past couple seasons. So, they have some backups. For the Red Sox, they have Chris Martin. So if Kenley Jansen doesn't really do so well, they have a backup. The Dodgers, a big powerhouse team this season has Evan Phillips, as their closer for this season, but Blake Trinan's healthy. Brusdar Graterol was supposed to be like the future closer until they ended up signing Evan Phillips. So they have kind of like that committee kind of style also. The Mariners, they have Andres Munoz, but they also have Gregory Santos as the setup guy. So it seems like there's like, unless these closers have like a really high strikeout rate, it seems like they just have a chance to lose their closer role for this season, So that's one thing to also look on the waiver wire. If you do have one of these guys, in the blue, Carlos Estevez, Kyle Finnegan, Pete Fairbanks, Clay Holmes, Andres Munoz, Evan Phillips, Craig Kimbrell, Ryan Halsey, Tanner Scott, and Kenley Jansen. All these guys have opportunity to get, 30 saves or more. But if they struggle, it's time to look on the waiver wire and try to find, another name out there, maybe their backup.
Right.
If Evan Phillips starts to be in a little bit of a decline, or if any of these guys get hurt, you go on the waiver wire, you're looking for guys like Blake Trinan or Bruce Dark Gratterall, or if it's the Yankees, Clay Holmes is like the closer right now, but they also have Jonathan Loaizaga. You can look for him on the waiver wire. The Rays, Pete Fairbanks. The Rays are kind of like all over the place. Pete Fairbanks had 25 saves last season, but he has a injury history also. They have Jason Adam, that is their setup guy that could also potentially take that closer role. And the Angels, Carlos Estevez had 31 saves last season, and he's not even their best reliever, dude. I think Robert Stevenson, the backup, the setup guy, he's actually even better than Carlos Estevez. But it's the Angels, so they do a lot of weird things, like not trade Ohtani before he's a free agent and get a bunch of prospects for him.
Yeah. Sorry, Ernie.
Sorry, Ernie. Sorry to talk crap about your Angels, but we're not the only ones,
Yeah. That's crazy. Let me ask you a question. Out of these guys, right? Is there one name in here that pops out to you?
The blue or the red?
Any of them?
Honestly,
any of
man,
them that you think is gonna make that you think is gonna make more noise than they are expected to?
I think Edwin Diaz.
Dude, you took that shit right out of my mouth.
Edwin Diaz. Okay, so let's give a little backstory right now, right? Because
Yeah.
he pitched in the WBC before the 2023 season. Have you seen the video?
Yeah.
He's
He
out there
pulled a belly.
celebrating, jumping up and down, and then ends up tearing a ligament in his knee.
That's
And it's not
crazy.
like anyone touched him. No one
Mhm.
tackled the guy because they were like excited. He was just kind of jumping up and down out of excitement. And I don't know if it was like a pre-existing injury, and then just kind of like that was the straw that broke the camel's back, or however
Yeah.
the saying goes. But dude, Edwin Diaz is freaking amazing when he's healthy.
Mhm. Yep.
17.1 K per 9. That is insane, dude.
Yeah.
That's at least 2 strikeouts every single time he goes out there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. He pulled a belly, man.
Yeah, seriously.
Freaking celebrating, and then bam, you get injured. And I really hope that this injury doesn't affect him. As far as what we know he can do. The good thing is obviously he only pitches 1 inning. Um, but dude, that was the one name that kind of popped out when I was writing my notes. I'm like, dude, the season that he before the injury, 118 strikeouts, bro. That's crazy, man. For a
For
closer?
a guy
Oh
that
my
only
god.
pitches 1 inning every outing.
Man, that's what we're talking about, like points, and how strikeouts are valuable and saves obviously, but the potential to strike out the side with this guy is very high because
Oh,
like you said, he strikes out at least two guys per inning. So he can easily strike out your side, bro, and get the save, and that's mad points right there. Just by doing that alone, you know. Depending on how your league manager sets up the point system and all that stuff. But yeah, he was the one guy that kind of, I was kind of like, yo, I'm kind of excited to see what this guy can do. Hopefully the injury, didn't mess with his mechanics and and his delivery and stuff like that. And we could still see him, strike out over 100 dudes in one season, bro. That would be
yeah.
so dope.
So, honestly, like, if I'm in the draft, Edwin Diaz right now is going number 56 overall, which is, what is that, like the 4th round?
Mm-hmm. More or
4th
less.
round, 5th round, something like that. So, 5th round. my strategy right now is I'm going 2 hitters and then 2 starting pitchers. But that 5th pick, if Edwin Diaz is available right there,
Ooh,
I guess it depends
juicy.
on who else is around him in that area, but he is the one reliever that I feel like I might reach a little bit for because I feel like he is just going to be so much better than other starting pitchers that are kind of like going right after him, you
Yep.
know?
Yep.
Like
And
the
that's
starting
crazy to
pitch
say.
that is
That's crazy
crazy
to
to say.
say.
Like,
For a
so
relief pitcher, you're picking up a relief pitcher before, in the 5th round, which is early. You still got a bunch of starting pitchers that are great,
So the
but
next starting pitcher that's coming off the board, except for Blake Snell, because right now Blake Snell's at 63, but once he signs with the team, that's going to shoot up a little bit, But the next starting pitcher that comes off the board is Logan Gilbert at 65. And if I see Edwin Diaz and
mm,
Logan Gilbert 9 spots away from each other, and I need to
yeah.
fill a pitcher slot right there, I'm going after Edwin Diaz. There's no
Oh yeah.
way I'm picking up Logan Gilbert over Edwin Diaz. I feel
Yeah.
like they're probably going to be very similar in points, but I need an RP.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of other starting pitchers out there that are going to be available way later in the draft. And Logan Gilbert, he's going pretty high, man, 65. I
Mm,
feel like there's so many other starting pitchers that I'd rather have that are going a little bit later, like Grayson Rodriguez. I'd much rather have Grayson Rodriguez than Logan Gilbert.
yeah.
First of all, he's on
Yeah.
a better team, way higher upside. Logan Gilbert, like we talked about on the starting pitcher preview, he's just kind of like that boring guy that's kind of like
Yeah.
a little bit safe. But there's Bobby Miller going a little bit later, Zach Eflin going a little bit later, Yuri Perez, you
Oh
know, it,
my.
I'm seeing all
Mm,
these names and I'm like, Edwin Diaz looks pretty juicy right there, man.
yeah.
Right
Yep.
before Edwin Diaz is Freddie Peralta. Now, if it's between those two guys, I'm probably going Freddie Peralta. I
Right.
feel like the upside for Freddie Peralta is so high, and he could potentially be the ace of the Brewers. I guess he's considered
Yeah.
the ace of the Brewers this season because Corbin Burns is gone and Brandon Woodruff's out on
The I
injured injury
Yeah.
list, and I feel like Freddie Peralta is going to be the guy, and maybe he'll run away with it, and maybe he won't.
Yeah.
Some guys just don't do well under pressure, but I'm really hoping for Freddie Peralta. I know he has the
Yeah.
skill.
This will be like the season that I think people are gonna expect him to finally just be like, this is what you're gonna get every season from Freddie Peralta.
Yeah,
He's got to make it happen. He's got to make it happen. Plays on a pretty good team, so he's got to take that. Take the ball and run with it. As they
yeah,
say.
and he's also in one of the weaker divisions in
Yep.
baseball. The NL Central and the AL Central. I feel like the AL Central is probably weaker than the NL Central, but the NL Central is probably like second weakest division in all of baseball.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like
I'm excited for Diaz, man.
I'm just thinking like if I'm in the draft and like my pick is like 3 spots later and I see Freddie Peralta and Edwin Diaz right there, I'm kind of hoping in the back of my mind, I really hope that someone takes Freddie Peralta so that way it kind of forces me to take Edwin
That
Diaz.
way you're not second guessing like which one should.
Exactly. That's why I was like, well, I guess
Yeah, I hear
I
you.
guess I better go with Edwin Diaz. Which I'm totally fine with that. I feel like he has the
Yep. Yep.
potential to be the number one reliever in baseball for 2024. Just seeing like the type of pitcher that he is, the strikeouts, and unfortunately, he's playing for the Mets. That they've already said they're kind of like not really.
Only downside.
They're not really trying in 2024 so much. They're really looking for the future and really going for it starting fresh in 2025. So it looks like they're going to start trading away some guys. Edwin Diaz might be one of those guys. I don't know. Maybe he might get traded to a different contender, and because if the Mets are going to be starting a rebuild, there's no point in having a closer on the wrong side of 30 that could be in a decline pretty soon when you're like rebuilding now. You know, they're already losing Pete Alonso at the end of the season unless they offer him an extension, which he already said he wants to test the free agent market. You know, so I think it's a good possibility that the Mets could actually trade Edwin Diaz. You know, and closer to the deadline, we're going to have a better idea of which teams are the real contenders. You know, versus like teams that could trade for him now that could possibly be in a race. You know, but the team that comes to mind that could really use a closer, like really use a closer, because all their relievers are kind of like meh, is the Phillies. The Phillies made it to the World Series a couple seasons ago. Last year they were pretty damn close, but I feel like they just need that like shutdown closer. You know, they extended Wheeler. They gave Nola that new contract. You know, that's your 1-2 punch right there. And you need a closer. Pitching wins playoffs, whether it's starting pitching or the bullpen, you know, and Edwin Diaz could be the guy. You never know. Like the Orioles went out and got Craig Kimbrell. You know, he's not the best reliever out there, but they're making moves. They're making lots of moves. They got Corbin Burns, you know, and it looks like the Phillies are just kind of like staying in house now.
Yeah, I think they're finally bringing in like the veteran pieces they needed on that Baltimore team, which is gonna make them that much better. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
Burns and Kimbrell. Yep.
Yeah, Orioles are looking scary, especially like you said, with all that young talent coming up too, learning from guys like Corbin Burns and Craig Kimbrell. Even though Craig Kimbrell isn't the best reliever out there anymore, he still has a wealth of knowledge that he could give to these young pitchers, whether they're in the bullpen or starting pitching or whatever. You know, he's been around the block a time or two. You know, been to the playoffs a few times, so I think the Orioles look like they could be going pretty deep into the playoffs this season. I think it's a little early for me to say that they're, World Series favorites because the Astros are always there. And then the Yankees have been making moves. They got Juan Soto. So, I know everyone's high on Blake Snell. Everyone thinks that he's going to sign with the Yankees. I personally don't think it's a good idea because he gives up so many fly balls and walks. With that short porch in right field and the distance, from home plate to left field is just not so big either. Playing in that ballpark is probably not the best idea for a fly ball pitcher. You want guys that are going to put the ball on the ground or just like strike out everybody, which Blake Snell does get a lot of strikeouts. His K per 9's like up in like the 12s, I think. So it might work for him, but yeah, I'm kind of like, it's Blake Snell. He'll get to the 5th inning, and then the 6th inning he'll come around and he'll give up 5 runs on 5 hits.
And the wheels would fall off.
Yeah, but we're just haters if we say that.
Yeah,
Carlos calls me a Blake Snell hater. You know what? That's true. I am a Blake Snell hater.
I wear that shit with pride.
we need to do a show where we're like giving our thoughts on guys that we are actively avoiding, because Blake Snell and Aaron Nola are definitely 2 of mine that I would definitely have on my list.
Yeah, that'd be a really interesting topic.
All right, set next week. That's what we're doing. I'm not going to have this background next week, because I'll be on vacation, but I'm still going to do the show, and I'll probably have like a fire in the background, or I don't know what my backdrop is going to be yet, but yeah, I'll definitely be here. I gotta be consistent, like we were talking about, right? We're almost at that 600. Every single week we're putting in work. We're trying to give that good content, and I think we are. And I think we're done with RPs, unless you got something else that you want to say, man.
No, it's like just to add to what you were saying. We appreciate like the support from all the subscribers. I always look at it as a game. We're like at what 591,
593, I think it was the last time I checked.
We could, even if we could hit 600, bro, by sometime in the beginning of the season, that's like a win.
It's a huge milestone, man.
Yeah,
Huge
yeah.
milestone.
You pretty much start from zero, and you're moving your way up, and
Yeah.
with support of everybody, that logs in and looks and watches the show and comments and asks questions and stuff like that. It really helps out the channel. It helps us grow. As a fantasy baseball community, we try to put out as much content as we can for you guys, and we just appreciate the support.
Yeah, Carlos and I, so I started just an Instagram page and I called it Real Talk Baseball, and it was
Mm,
just photos of players and, my little kind of like insights and stuff like that. And Carlos saw that I started my Instagram and he was like, "Hey, let's start a podcast." And this
yeah.
is during the pandemic, right? When the pandemic started. And I was like,
Hmm.
"Okay." I was
Why
like,
not?
a little kid, like kind of like, excited, like, "Ooh, someone else wants to do this with me? Hell yeah."
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it started off really bad, really, really bad. Like we
You
didn't
can
know
go to
what
the
that.
channel and check it out, man.
Oh,
Like, it's
please
so
don't.
funny to see
Please
that.
don't go to the channel and watch our first couple videos, man. It's so embarrassing. I had this little stupid mustache and I'm talking about spin rate on the balls, which I kind of had an idea of, like, what the importance of spin rate was and everything, but I was just kind of like talking out of my ass, man. But hey,
Yeah.
it was a learning experience. That was in 2020. 4 years later, we're here with almost 600 subscribers. And just like you said, we appreciate each and every one of you guys that have subscribed to our channel and like our videos. And dude, I'm excited for the future, man. That
Yeah.
this is only the beginning. We're finally starting to get some traction, and I feel like this is going in the right direction. We're heading in the right direction, and we have so much support from fans and family and friends, and it's an exciting time for Real Talk Baseball right now.
Yeah. I agree 100%.
All right, guys. Well, we reached the end of the show. One of our shorter episodes this season, but I feel like that's okay, because as the season goes, we're probably not going to hit that hour mark too often, because there's a lot less players that we're going to be talking about each and every week.
Yeah.
So if you haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe button. You can scan the QR code in the top right corner to follow us on all of our social medias. If you want to just listen to the podcast, we are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And that's about it. So tune in next week. We'll be back here again. And eventually we'll do some live episodes. But, for right now, it is pre-recorded. But you can always, throw some comments in there on YouTube, or send us messages on Instagram, Facebook. And if you have any fantasy questions, we're always here for you guys. And we have an email, realtalkbaseball@yahoo.com. You can email us with your fantasy questions, or if you need advice, draft advice, or whatever it is. And all right, this was Real Talk Fantasy Baseball for Javi and myself. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks.
Laters.